Okay, let me be honest. I love rom-coms.
It's like that movie. What movie?
A rom-com, or romantic comedy, is usually defined as a film that explores love in a light, humorous way.
Ugh, as if.
They're dependable, predictable, and somehow still so damn good. They're the movies I can always come back to no matter how many times I've seen them.
Good night, honey.
But growing up loving the genre also meant noticing something else.
You had me at hello.
Who usually got to be at the center of those stories. Most of the time, they didn't look like me, and that's okay. I'm not the target audience for everything. But when we think about classic Black love stories, they were rarely allowed to be comedic, if not just outright tragic. And that's when the questions started to form. What is a Black rom-com? What you're looking at right now is one of the first images of love ever captured on film. Appearing in 1896, this is a silent short called The Kiss, just about 18 seconds long, showing a couple sharing a brief smooch. By today's standards, it barely registers. But in Victorian society, where public displays of affection were widely condemned, this was radical. A New York World article titled Anatomy of a Kiss captured the significance of the moment. It said, "For the first time in the history of the world, it is possible to see what a kiss looks like. In 42 feet of kiss recorded by the kinetoscope, every phase is shown with startling distinctness. The real kiss is a revelation. According to a Thomas Edison Inc. catalog, the embrace played in a way that brought the house down every time. In many ways, The Kiss became the world's first romance film, and the public couldn't look away. After The Kiss, audiences wanted to see more intimacy on screen, and what began as a brief moment quickly turned into something much larger.
Now the world's changing out there. There's a lot of new, exciting ideas running around.
As filmmakers responded to that interest, romance became a recurring subject rather than a novelty in the movies. Love stories expanded, humor was layered in, and relationships became the center of the narrative. Out of that shift, the romantic comedy film emerged. The first feature film of the genre is credited as being the silent film Mickey in 1918. It was a massive hit, grossing over $18 million in a 4-year run, at a time when theater tickets were, for the most part, less than $1. So yeah, it was kind of a big deal. Then came screwball comedies like It Happened One Night and Bringing Up Baby. In the 50s, you had Singing in the Rain and Pillow Talk. 60s, The Graduate and Breakfast at Tiffany's. 70s, Grease and... Wait, who is that?
What? Yeah, who speak? Well, this is Claudine.
Released in 1974, Claudine stars Diane Carroll as a Harlem single mother of 6, and James Earl Jones as Roop, a garbage collector trying to build a relationship with her. On paper, it's a romantic comedy, but it was a little different from the usual. Well, in some ways less obvious than others.
You on welfare? And here you are working. Do you report this income?
Unlike the glossy escapism of most rom-coms that came before it, Claudine is set firmly inside of economic reality. She isn't searching for love in Paris or in a Manhattan penthouse. She's navigating welfare benefits, single motherhood, and the constant fear that happiness might come at the cost of her survival. Romance here is not whimsical. It's complicated. Every step towards intimacy threatens the fragile stability she's built for her family. Literally, like if she dates anyone, her social worker will revoke her benefits.
You're the gentleman that's been keeping company here.
That's what makes Claudine such a striking contrast to the romantic comedy surrounding it. While other films could lean into fantasy, youth, and aesthetic longing, the love that's attainable for Claudine exists alongside responsibility, exhaustion, and systemic pressure.
You have a man come over for dinner, he brings you a bottle of wine. I have a man come over for dinner, he brings me a damn 6-pack.
Claudine depicts love not as spectacle or an escape, but as something lived, negotiated, and earned. While Marilyn and Audrey were able to be whimsical in their love, Diane had to be calculated. And while the film had some comical moments, wasn't funny about Claudine.
Just takes a lot of money to be a dad, and I ain't got it.
Claudine was released in the middle of the blaxploitation era, but it was not a blaxploitation film. 20th Century Fox leaned into that distinction, marketing it instead as a heart and soul comedy, grounded in a way films like Foxy Brown were not.
That's the idea.
In a 2020 essay for Dissent magazine, journalist Charles Taylor described Diahann Carroll's performance as one of exhausted radiance. That phrase captures something essential about the period. Many Black films that sought distance from blaxploitation had to anchor themselves in realism, restraint, and visible struggle. Diana Ross had to disappear into pain in Lady Sings the Blues. Cicely Tyson was a sharecropper's wife in Sounder, and Diane was Claudine. These women were allowed beauty and depth, but only once that beauty was tempered by responsibility and suffering. Grounding became a safeguard, a way to make Black stories, particularly those with Black women in lead roles, legible without being seen as threatening. These films, groundbreaking and amazing as they were and still are, had a subtext to all of them. Yes, you can be Diahann Carroll or even Diana Ross, but you still gonna have to struggle. I mean, they even made The Wiz scary. Claudine stands out as the only Black romantic comedy released by a major studio in the 1970s, and in being the only one, it carried quite a burden. It was expected to stay tethered to reality in a way that white romantic comedies rarely were. Joy had to be justified, fantasy had to be earned, and even within love stories, Black life was framed through responsibility, struggle, and survival.
Hi, I'm Eddie Murphy.
14 years after Claudine hit theaters, Eddie Murphy was the most famous comedian in the world. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. By 1988, he was coming off of Beverly Hills Cop 2, which would go on to gross over $300 million worldwide. He was 27 years old and at the absolute peak of Hollywood. His contract at Paramount Pictures was only rivaled by one other property at the studio, Star Trek. So of course the Oscars wanted him on their broadcast to present the most important award of the night, peak viewership, millions of people watching all around the globe. And then he started talking.
Because they haven't recognized Black people in the motion picture.
Up until that point, Eddie had been a safe bet, relatively.
Black people will not ride the caboose of society, and we will not bring up the rear anymore. And I want you to recognize us.
Everybody loved him, relatively.
And I'll probably never win an Oscar for saying this, but hey, what the hey, I gotta say it.
People laughed, of course, and Eddie laughed too. But something shifted.
There was no mention. It was almost like I wasn't at the awards that night. The next day, there was no mention of it, and there were no pictures of me at the Oscars.
It was strange. The press usually devoured everything he did, but this time, they said nothing at all. A few years later, though, the industry was transforming.
More than 20 new movies are on the way this year by Black filmmakers, and as Pablo Guzman reports, it's an explosion of talent that has been a long time in the making, more than 70 years.
By 1991, a new wave had emerged. By year's end, more than 19 major studio films were scheduled to be released by Black filmmakers, more than the entire previous decade combined. But this wasn't some moral awakening. It was economics. Target Market News reported that while Black people made up just 12% of the U.S. population, they accounted for 25% of the country's movie-going audience in 1991. Money talks.
Hollywood may be racist, but the color green opens a lot of doors.
At the same time, the monoculture was starting to shift. MTV had only begun playing Black music videos 8 years earlier, when Michael Jackson released Billie Jean and Beat It. Since then, the network had started to open a window into hip-hop culture for Middle America. Yo MTV Raps became the gateway, offering a voyeuristic view into a world they were curious about.
They want to find out what's going on with the drug culture a la New Jack City. They want to find out what's happening with hip-hop culture in middle-class America, as in the House Party saga.
And I'll probably never win an Oscar for saying this, But hey, what the hey, I gotta say.
The backlash came soon after Eddie's Oscar speech. Not in a way he could directly trace it to that single moment, but in a slow, steady drip. It showed up in gossip columns and magazine hit pieces. Eddie was suddenly too arrogant. He was demanding. He was late. Eddie had famously coined the term the Black Pack, a tight circle of successful comedians that included Robert Townsend, Arsenio Hall, Paul Mooney, and Keenen Ivory Wayans. But despite that inner circle, critics inside the industry felt Eddie wasn't doing enough beyond his friends. In 1988, one anonymous producer told the LA Times, "Murphy has the power to change the industry, but to do so, he must develop institutions and utilize qualified and professional Black talent. It's great that he's opened doors for his friends, but he hasn't really put them in power positions." Spike Lee was even more direct in Jet magazine. He said that if Eddie Murphy, who had made $1 billion for Paramount, walked into the studio and declared he wouldn't make another film until Black people were hired in the front office, they would have to do it. He added, pointedly, "I hope he'll use his clout rather than focus on who gets the best table at Spago."
I mean, there would be no Spike if there were no me, so you can't say like, well, Eddie hasn't done enough, because, hey, you here, ain't you? You know?
By the late 80s, Eddie Murphy wasn't just a movie star. He had become a symbol of power in Hollywood. And the question hanging over him wasn't whether he had it, but whether he was willing to use it. He tried to shift behind the camera with Harlem Nights in 1989, a passion project where he directed, wrote, and starred alongside legends like Richard Pryor and Red Fox.
You know, this is his first job writing and directing a picture, and he really doesn't show anything in the direction of this film that is special. I don't know why he did it other than an ego thing.
Critics panned it, universally. And when another 48 Hours failed to match expectations, the narrative hardened.
There was validity to a lot of the things that people were saying about Harlem Nights, but then they went extra mean on it because it was me and because it was like, you know, I guess they viewed it as someone with an ego out of control doing all these things.
Suddenly, Eddie, once untouchable, was looking for a win.
But here is a man who is, by his very nature, destined to be and is a superstar. And there is nothing that he could not have if he exercises quality control.
At the 1991 Cannes premiere of Boys in the Hood, Roger Ebert spotted Eddie in the crowd. In his review, Ebert wondered whether Eddie, coming off 2 misfires and a wave of criticism, was searching for something new, for influences that might redirect his career. It turns out he was. And that search would soon lead him to something a little unexpected. Not to action, not to stand up, but back to romance?
She's your queen to be.
Eddie had tried his hand at a romantic comedy before. In fact, Coming to America would go on to become a cult classic, and even if most people didn't consider it a romantic comedy at the time, it had romance. And it had comedy.
His mama named Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
The premise was simple. An African prince travels to New York in search of a wife. But between the costume changes, soul glow, and Eddie's shapeshifting performances, critics largely treated the film as a straight comedy. Vince Canby in the New York Times wrote, "Though Coming to America is a romantic comedy, John Landis, the director, and the writers steered the film more towards quick in-and-out comic situations and gags that are only mildly funny. The romance is tepid." So in 1991, it was a wonder that Murphy would relegate himself to wanting to do a romance film when his bread and butter had always been action and comedy. In the years after Claudine, there were only a handful of Black romantic comedies made, and none of them fully cracked it. But Eddie Murphy, arguably the most famous Black actor of the time, may have been the only person with the cultural currency to make it work, and possibly to reshape the genre altogether. But he said, "There was a period where I was doing these movies and repeating myself. Golden Child was half-assed, so were Harlem Nights, Another 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop 2, you know which movies. I realized, wait a second, I gotta be true to myself as an artist. I'll only do stuff I have a passion about.
I think it's really going to be the start of a lot of really daring, innovative filmmaking that you're going to be seeing from Black filmmakers.
Enter Reginald Hudlin. While still an undergraduate at Harvard University, Hudlin directed a short film titled House Party as his senior thesis. That short would eventually be expanded into a full-length feature, produced by his brother Warrington and picked up for distribution at New Line Cinema. Against expectations, House Party became a breakout hit and one of the most profitable films of the decade when it earned 10 times its $2.5 million budget. House Party stood out in the early 90s because it was operating in a different lane. Movies like Boys in the Hood and Juice focused on tragedy and consequence. They were serious by necessity. House Party, on the other hand, leaned into fun. The stakes were lower. The tone was lighter.
I saw a student movie Reggie did called Cold Waves a long time ago, and I liked them back then. And when I saw House Party, I really liked them.
Eddie saw House Party and immediately took notice. He liked it a lot. At the same time, Eddie and Brian Grazer had been developing a concept centered on a ladies' man who finally meets his match. They brought the idea to Barry Blaustein and David Sheffield, writers Eddie already trusted from Saturday Night Live. The first draft came together pretty quickly, about 3 months, and once it was finished, the project was greenlit. Meanwhile, Reginald Hudlin was deep into writing a science fiction musical comedy. His words, not mine, when he got a call completely out of the blue. Eddie wanted him to direct his next film. The brothers agreed to work on the project. Reginald would direct and Warrington would produce.
I was such a fan of Eddie Murphy, and it's weird because I'm the same age as Eddie, but he was on Saturday Night Live and I had a bedtime, you know? So when I got to work with him, I said, I want to make the movie I've always wanted Eddie to be in.
Reginald said, I loved sophisticated comic romance stories when I was growing up. One of my favorite movies was His Girl Friday, and I always wondered, why are there no black people in these movies? So we were thrilled when Eddie gave us the opportunity to make the type of film we had always admired. They aspired to give Eddie his Cary Grant moment.
I may need him. Goodbye.
But he needed a posse. Reginald tapped David Alan Grier and Martin Lawrence to play Murphy's best friends in the movie. Grier had to commute between Los Angeles and New York during production, balancing the shoot with his work on In Living Color. At 35, the Yale School of Drama alum had come to comedy almost by accident. While filming A Soldier Story, he met Robert Townsend, who dared him to do a 5-minute set at the Laugh Factory. Townsend then introduced him to the Wayans brothers, leading to a small role in I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
How do you respond to that?
Convinced he could make comedy work, Keenan Ivory Wayans cast Grier in the original lineup of In Living Color, one of the hottest new shows on TV.
Thank you. I'm Martin Lawrence. How y'all doing?
Reginald brought in comedian Martin Lawrence to play Murphy's other best friend, Tyler. Lawrence had already worked with the Hudlin brothers on House Party and by that point was quickly gaining momentum in the industry. Another young star from House Party was also tapped for the film, Tisha Campbell as Murphy's nosy neighbor.
Okay, we'll try it again here. We're still rolling, and
Columnist Mike Sindoni opened his December 1992 article with the very pointed line, "The babe, the victim, the junkie." Only now will video viewers meet a character remotely close to the real Halle Berry. At the time, Berry, a former Miss Ohio and runner-up for Miss USA, had appeared in just 3 films, the most notable being Jungle Fever, where she played a crack addict.
Nigga, don't push on me.
In only a span of 2 years, she had diversified her acting portfolio, including the rom-com Strictly Business, which didn't fare so well critically or commercially.
And I begin working on a film called Boomerang with Eddie Murphy next month.
When she came in for an audition, Reginald Hudlin knew she was exactly right for the role of Angela. He really wanted Eddie to like her. She too was anxious, saying, "I didn't sleep for 2 days before I had to do the screen test. I thought he would be all the horrible things people say about him. I thought he'd make me do all the work. But he really gave a lot to me. After they tested together, Eddie told Hudlin, there's no need to see the other actresses because she's the part.
She's wonderful. She's a wonderful actress.
Go ahead.
Wonderful.
What else?
Yeah, I expect wonderful things from this woman, a long, wonderful career.
Eddie Murphy's down.
So, you know it must mean something.
Now for the role of Jacqueline, the woman who gives Murphy's character Marcus a run for his money, the team knew they needed someone with a very specific presence. Someone who could match him, challenge him, and still command a screen.
This is great. I'm enjoying this.
Robin Givens was Eddie's ex. Yeah, in real life. They dated while she was an undergrad at Sarah Lawrence College. At the time, Eddie was right on the edge of superstardom, breaking through on Saturday Night Live. Robin, meanwhile, was still finding her footing as a pre-med major, years before she'd land her breakout role on the long-running sitcom Head of the Class.
They'll go with me.
Since then, the two had gone their separate ways. Eddie became a superstar, and Robin became an actress in Mrs. Mike Tyson. Being married to the heavyweight champion of the world turned out to be Robin's most difficult role yet, and the public spectacle that followed was something she was still living with years later.
Did you know there's a video game out called Mike Tyson's Punch-Out? And that's just based on his home life.
The Tyson-Givens relationship was less of a romance than a collision. Two young stars, both at the peak of their fame, coming together in a way that felt combustible from the start. They began dating in 1987, and less than a year later, they were married. In her memoir, Givens recalls Tyson being physically abusive throughout their relationship. Tyson, along with the people close to him, didn't exactly deny those claims, but they took a different approach in the media.
Robin Givens, I'm Mrs. Tyson. Everything goes through me. And they start spending his money.
Instead, they argued that Givens and her mother had orchestrated the relationship, pressuring him into marriage in order to gain access to his money.
There are a lot of people who think you're running the show, that you're running Mike Tyson.
The media latched on to that version of events. It fit a story they already knew how to tell. Besides, Mike Tyson was the heavyweight champion of the world with endorsements everywhere from Pepsi to Kodak. He was a cash cow, the kind the media wasn't eager to complicate. A Barbara Walters interview and allegations of abuse weren't going to derail that machine. You can't compete with Pepsi.
Robin, inquiring minds want to know, how does a woman who went to Sarah Lawrence and Harvard Medical School wind up falling in love with a guy who's a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks?
God, I want to know too.
In their telling, Mike Tyson was the poor kid from Brownsville. Young, volatile, unsophisticated. Robin Givens, by contrast, was framed as polished and calculating. A Sarah Lawrence student, privately educated, someone who moved in circles far removed from his. They didn't fit. She must have plotted on him.
I believe she's a gold digger, as they've said all along.
And so that framing stuck, and it followed her. She was labeled the most hated woman in America by the time they divorced in 1989. And it's hard to get jobs when you're the most hated woman in America.
Robin Givens trying to let the public know that she's an actress, not just some tabloid personality who went 4 or 5 rounds with former heavyweight champ Mike Tyson.
Paramount execs thought it would be a mistake to cast her, as it threatened to turn audiences off toward the movie. But Hudlin thought that reputation might actually help her in the role, saying that she was this formidable person and a match for Eddie Murphy, who also had a reputation as a ladies' man. So I wanted the audience to feel like this would be a fair fight. So she was cast as Jacqueline Boyer.
I mean, I like Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas, but let's see Eddie Murphy and Robin Givens. Let's you know, it's a really refreshing change of pace.
Before production began, Hudlin pulled the cast together for a 2-week rehearsal, which Murphy had never done before. He'd been famous since he was a teenager. He'd never even auditioned, but he found it really useful as they created a camaraderie between the cast. Hudlin really loved the comedic work Tisha Campbell and Martin Lawrence were doing during this period. Murphy took notice and suggested that Hudlin should make a film built around the two of them. Lawrence was in the early stages of developing a TV show on his own at the time and overheard the conversation. he kept it in the back of his mind.
Murphy hopes he'll be as popular with his fans with the release of Boomerang. His last couple of films, Harlem Nights and Another 48 Hours, were box office flops, so he could use a hit.
But when production started in November of 1991, so did the rumors. Eddie was always late to set. The Hudlins rewrote the script and barred Barry and David from assisting or coming over. The movie was over budget. And with the biggest budget for a black director ever at $40 million, that was a really big deal in the press. Eddie said, "We're doing some of the best so they better start paying for it." Boomerang opens with Marcus Graham, played by Eddie Murphy, walking into work. Eddie, looking suave as ever, moves through the building like he owns the place. He greets everyone on his way to the office, and it's immediately clear that he's the man around there. Over lunch with Tyler and Gerard, played by Martin Lawrence and David Allen Greer respectively, they call him out for his impossibly high standards and his refusal to commit. In the middle of the conversation, Marcus spots a woman across the way. Christy, played by Leela Rashan. She's striking, a little eccentric, and immediately has his attention. So Marcus does what he knows how to do. He comes up with a scheme, pretending he's lost his made-up dog just to get her number. Marcus invites Christy over to his place for dinner.
So who's the victim tonight?
Tisha Campbell does some amazing work as Marcus's nosy neighbor Yvonne, and has some of the funniest moments in the film. Like literal comedic gold is happening here.
Why don't you just tell her the truth? Tell her you're gonna use her, then you're gonna dump her like you did me.
Anyways, Marcus lies his way through his date with Christy and somehow ends up staying the night at her place, in which he discovers that she has bad feet. And he can't date a woman with bad feet. The next morning, he talks it over with his crew, in which he says,
"I'm looking for perfection."
The company Marcus works for has been acquired by the Lady Eloise brand. Lady Eloise is played by none other than the remarkable and fabulous Eartha Kitt, who purrs her way into inviting Marcus over to her home for a quote-unquote business meeting.
Good evening, Mr. Graham.
Her estate is called Lavender Hill, a little tongue-in-cheek nod to Eddie Murphy's real-life home, Bubble Hill. He spends the night with her, fully believing that this is the move that would land him a promotion. And I must say, if this film happened today, Lady Eloise might be in jail.
It's just a little darker.
Soon after, Marcus is back in the office and he spots the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, Jacqueline Breuer. He approaches her and tells her exactly that.
You're the most gorgeous woman I've ever laid my eyes on. I had to come over and meet you.
But she isn't impressed.
What you said was pretty pathetic.
Jacqueline shuts him down immediately, unmoved by his pickup lines and seeing straight through what other women might mistake for charm. He introduces himself, and Jacqueline, the quintessential businesswoman, already knows his work.
I'm sorry, I'm Jacqueline Breuer.
Okay.
I have to tell you, I'm a huge fan of your work.
Still not realizing who she is, though, Marcus tells her that once the merger goes through, he'll be the head of marketing, hoping to impress her.
I'm afraid that there's been some kind of misunderstanding. I'm sorry, you see, I'm in charge of marketing.
Marcus can't believe that his tryst with Lady Eloise couldn't get him the position, and Jacqueline tells him that Lady Eloise is just a figurehead and doesn't make any hiring decisions. At the party to celebrate the merger, Jacqueline introduces Marcus and the guys to Angela Lewis, who works in the art department. She's obviously a beautiful woman, just not as glamorous and confident as Jacqueline, who commands a room.
Strange.
Jacqueline introduces Lady Eloise's newest face of the company, Strange, played by Grace Jones, and she makes a spectacular entrance. Angela immediately clocks that Marcus is interested in Jacqueline. He can't really make it more obvious.
Most men are. I mean, look at her. She's fantastic.
They have banter, but Marcus isn't interested in Angela romantically and passes her off to Gerard, who is painfully awkward. Marcus tries to charm Jacqueline at the party, but she makes it clear that she doesn't date the men she works with.
I quit.
The chemistry between Robin Givens and Eddie Murphy is genuinely strong here. It doesn't hurt that they were friends and ex-lovers in real life, but either way, their back and forth is sharp, but also easy. I mean, it just works.
I was more comfortable working with Robin than any actress that I've ever worked with.
Strange was meant to be written as a parody of the character the media had created out of Grace Jones.
I hate it.
In this scene in particular, when she was presented a fragrance she doesn't like for her perfume line, Hudlin stated, "What Grace was doing on set while we were shooting was so funny that I remember Halle crying off camera." Because she was trying to keep a straight face, but she couldn't. So whenever she was off camera, she would literally just be crying because she was laughing so hard.
Don't make fun of me, okay?
Marcus invites Jacqueline over for a business dinner. She initially declines, but he pushes, promising it'll just be about work. Still, when she arrives, he's clearly set it up like a date. Music playing, fireplace lit, the whole thing. That same night, Angela and Gerard are on an actual date at her place, and it's more cringeworthy than romantic.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Jacqueline is far more interested in watching basketball than making small talk with Marcus, and that completely throws him.
Don't let him do it to you, girl. He got a plan.
He can't believe a woman isn't responding to his usual routine. Soon, the company heads to a sales convention in New Orleans. I don't know why they need the art department there, but Angela sits next to Marcus on the plane.
I think you're cool.
It's obvious that she has a little crush. She keeps doing this thing throughout the movie, like lightly needling him by bringing up Jacqueline, trying to check the temperature, but she's obviously interested.
I like you, and I was just being concerned.
On the business trip, Jacqueline and Marcus spend a night together, and Marcus falls hard. Plus, she has pretty feet. But she isn't really budging on the relationship front.
You're not getting serious on me, are you?
She leaves him waiting by the phone. He gets stood up at a concert he bought tickets for, and all of a sudden, she's doing to him exactly what he's probably done to countless other women.
One of my tricks, okay? I know the flower thing.
Jacqueline doesn't take Marcus seriously at all. She even fills Strange in on their whole situation, and Strange, in turn, propositions Marcus over dinner.
What's the matter with you? You don't like women?
Humiliated, Marcus finally confronts Jacqueline, and she responds by ending things altogether.
It's over.
Marcus is clearly down about it, and Bonnie T, the mail carrier, can't believe Marcus let Jacqueline do him like that.
First the fat boys break up, now this.
Marcus can't even focus on his work and lets Nelson, his eccentric colleague, take full control of the new Strange ad, a decision he'll later regret. Jacqueline has been gossiping about Marcus throughout the office. Angela steps in and asks her to ease up on him, pointing out that the situation is starting to affect his work.
Well, whatever it is you're doing to him, it's starting to affect his work.
Whatever it is I'm doing to him, you are taking rather personally.
Jacqueline isn't wrong for being annoyed with her. It's clear Angela likes him, and don't touch me. The new Strange commercial is ridiculous, as expected, and Jacqueline suggests Marcus take some time off to get his head straight.
Well, as an employee, I thank you for saving my job, and as your lover, I thank you for ruining my life.
During that time, Angela tries to brighten up his mood by taking him to teach art to underprivileged kids. And that sparks an idea for a new version of the Strange commercial. Thanksgiving rolls around and Gerard's parents come to town, played by John Witherspoon and BB Drake, who, fun fact, also played a couple in House Party. Naturally, more awkwardness follows between Gerard and Angela, who once again insist they're just friends, even though it's clear Gerard has at least a crush on her.
Isn't she pretty? She looked like one of Marcus' girls.
Gerard's parents, meanwhile, turn out to be far more fun and far more relaxed than he is, effortlessly stealing the scene and the energy of the night. As the night winds down and everyone leaves, Angela stays behind to help Marcus clean up, and the two of them end up sleeping together. The two begin a relationship, and it's clear Jacqueline feels a little territorial. Gerard does too when Marcus breaks the news to him over a game of pool, which leads to the two not speaking for some time.
Why do you always have to have all the girls, Marcus?
Now that Marcus isn't pining over her, Jacqueline is newly interested and gives him a call. And he comes running. He spends an evening with her, which leads Angela to confront him.
Love should have brought your ass home last night.
Marcus ends up being torn between his feelings for Angela and his fixation on Jacqueline. And objectively, he treats Angela badly during this stretch.
Look, Jacqueline says that I'm a better person now, and I know I owe that all to you.
Marcus starts the movie as a womanizer. He falls hard for Jacqueline, gets rejected, and spirals. Then he pulls himself out of that slump by siphoning emotional energy from Angela, only for it to be implied that he cheats on her and ultimately decides he's a better man for another woman because of her. On top of that, here comes Tisha.
Would you like to come over for a cup of coffee?
Not even if Jesus was pouring.
While on the rebound at Jacqueline's place, Marcus realizes he is in love with Angela. Jacqueline can't believe it, seeing as though he was obsessed with her like a month ago. Marcus makes things right with Gerard, and he reveals Angela quit working for Lady Eloise and got a creative director gig at another company. When we flash over to Angela in her new role, she's no longer the bubbly, artsy woman she once was. She's wearing a Jacqueline-esque dress, she's sharper, and seems a little bit more hardened. Like she's playing the role of what she thinks she should be. When her ex-students walk in, she quit that job after getting this new one. She immediately softens. Marcus walks in behind them, and she says something I agree with.
It's pretty low using the kids, Marcus.
In the original script, Marcus wasn't supposed to choose Angela. Jacqueline was meant to insult him again, pushing him back towards Angela by default. I think the Hudlin brothers made the right call by changing that. Having Marcus actively choose one woman over the other gives the ending more weight.
I love you so much.
He apologizes to Angela, telling her he's in love with her and says he wants to be with her, and in the end he gets the girl.
I guarantee they'll be deeply satisfied. Eddie's back. He's better.
The initial rough cut of the film was 3.5 hours long, but the final version is trimmed down to just about 2 hours. The studio was upset, but Hudlin said, "I don't think the studio ever really understood what we were doing," which is why the first time they saw the film, we insisted they see it in front of an audience, and people went crazy. Well, some people.
It's like I'm reading this thing. I'm reading this from the LA Times. This review, it says, the most intriguing aspect of Boomerang turns out not its story, but its racial composition. It says, this takes pains to create a reverse world from which white people are invisible.
Kenneth Turwin's review of Boomerang opens with a sharp jab. You can tell a performer is in trouble when his legal trouble is more entertaining than his movies. He then spends several paragraphs dismantling Eddie Murphy before finally getting to the heart of his argument. The most intriguing part of Boomerang, Turin writes, turns out not to be the story, but its racial composition. For the film takes pains to create a reverse world in which white people are invisible except when comic relief is called for. What's striking here is the inconsistency. Critics didn't bring this same scrutiny to Boys in the Hood, a movie with even fewer white people than Boomerang. Nor was this logic applied to films like Annie Hall, a New York set classic with minimal people of color that was never accused of creating a reverse world.
Diane Keaton.
Turin later goes further, calling Boomerang cinematic affirmative action, and that phrase gives the game away. The real discomfort wasn't the absence of white characters, it was what black characters were doing in their place. Being stylish, being educated, upwardly mobile, falling in love, centering themselves without tragedy as the thesis. Hollywood had just become comfortable with all-black casts when the story was about pain, struggle, violence, or even being goofy. But black success on screen, black romance on screen, that apparently was a problem. Murphy and Hudlin created their own op-eds in the Times calling out the review, in which Hudlin said in his, "There are more white people in Boomerang than all the black people in Woody Allen's films put together, which is the more accurate depiction of New York's racial makeup."
I'm gonna just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
Eddie's was a little less pointed. He said, "My dream is still the same. I want African Americans to be able to win Oscars, to do films about our people when we want to get films made, and to do what we want to do as artists. All we want is to be accepted as equals.
So when you get that type of criticism, you can't really trip on it. Or if someone's reviewing a movie and they're tripping on me, personally, I don't even get.
It's a cultural bias. It's the type of thing where people say they're not used to seeing black artists in these roles, so it seems odd to them. But I would say,
well, you better get used to it, because I ain't going no place.
Boomerang debuted at number 3 at the box office and went on to earn around $70 million domestically, nearly doubling its budget. Reviews were pretty mixed.
Because this is Eddie Murphy, suddenly you've got this sociological criticism. Is he black enough? Does he have enough black people?
No. I don't have it. His colleagues have it.
You've quoted it from other places.
Exactly right.
The fact is, I think you have to just look at this as a movie. You wouldn't put some other actor up to that kind of standard, I don't believe.
But maybe some people just weren't meant to get it. I, for one, never understood the hype around The Notebook. But I laugh every time John Witherspoon says,
See, you got the poor.
I love Pretty Woman, but Halle Berry and Robin Givens look as beautiful as anyone ever has in this film. And Eddie Murphy shouldn't have needed a Cary Grant moment. He deserved his own. For the people Boomerang was speaking to, it landed exactly where it needed. Not as a perfect love story, not as a moral lesson, but as a rom-com that let our love be stylish, fun, and front and center. No tragedy required. Boomerang opened the door for a new wave of black romantic comedies. With each new film, the narrow box Hollywood had long tried to squeeze black love on screen into stretched a little bit wider. We saw these stories get funnier, bigger, and sometimes even messier and more indulgent. But that freedom is the point.
We just hope people will come out to support them so that we can continue to do them. If people don't come see them, we can't do them. It lies in the box office, to tell you the truth.
So when that question comes up, what is a black romantic comedy? The answer should be simple. It's anything we want it to be.